Tumultuous Audio Podcast Network.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
This episode is brought to you by Walmart. New beauty is in bloom at Walmart, and it's all about springtime radiance. From Drybar, Tula Skincare, and hundreds more available online, Walmart has the premium brands you want and this season's on-trend products for flawless, glossy hair and hydrated skin. Big name beauty brands? Check. The things you love? Check. Find trending spring beauty and all you need to look and feel gorgeous at Walmart, on app and online.
Hola, gente hermosa. Bienvenidos a Whining About Herstory, the women's history podcast where two besties with breasties whine about women from history that you probably haven't heard of, but Def should have. I'm Emily.
I'm Kelley.
And I'm Drew.
He speaks.
The Drew speaks.
And the dogs speak because Emily is so excited.
You know, it's like a choir of angels. You know,
You hear that,
like
Drew? You're a choir of angels.
No, Drew speaks, and he has to be backed up by a choir of angels, which is just pugs barking. It's the Midwestern
my
choir of angels. It's like my choir of angels is a bunch of hissing possums. I descend from the heavens. It's just a bunch of possums in cowboy hats going, shh. Oh my God,
Navi is so upset.
You know what? Maybe she's just excited because this is the first time that Drew has been on the podcast and spoken. And we are so excited. We only had to do this for 6 years to get Drew to be on, like, properly on the podcast, not in the vicinity of the podcast.
Yeah.
And it wasn't too short after the being on the vicinity.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes. I think you might be addicted, and I'm not here to help you.
No.
I
We're
will
here to
not
facilitate.
I will not be your sponsor. I will be your dealer.
Yeah.
All day, every day.
My podcast dealer.
Oh my God,
Always.
straight into your ear holes. Just mainline it right into your ear holes.
Save those eardrums.
Hashtag save the eardrums. So, like most of our friends that we do have on the podcast, Drew did buy his way onto the show. We are very easily bought.
Particularly with wine.
I mean,
It is kind of in the title.
speaking of dealers, but Drew has brought us a very special wine to celebrate our 6 years.
Yay.
Drew, would you like to introduce it?
Of course. It is a Cabernet Sauvignon from Camus Vineyards.
Gamus.
Vintage
We
2020.
assume it's Italian. I guess
Yeah.
we never actually looked.
Well, Naples Valley.
Wait, is it Naples or Napa?
Napa?
So it's more
Napa
like
Valley?
Because
Camus, brah.
Naples is in Florida.
No, there's also an Italian Naples.
Is there?
Yes.
I think of Florida.
Oh my. Okay. That's like I think of Ohio when people
we'll
say
do this.
Miami.
And this is in California.
Okay, so instead of
It is kind of this then.
instead of Camus, it's Camus, brah.
And they say it's a dark, rich, and luxuriously soft, exuding natural characteristics that are born of the Napa Valley.
Nipple Valley.
Special climate and soils.
Yeah, Napa's like world famous for their wines.
Good soils.
Good
Good
soils.
soil. Gotta
Good
have all the soils.
I hope it has like that gritty, soily mouthfeel. There is
I'm okay
also
without the grit. Like it can taste like dirt, but I don't want to like. I
I'm
don't
okay-
want the grit of the dirt.
I'm okay if it tastes like dirt, but it can't have the consistency of dirt.
Yeah, exactly.
Smells
So-
like wine.
Okay,
I'm glad.
that is. I'm just gonna say 5 stars for this wine. Smells like wine, says Drew. So there's also a story on the back of this. Is that correct, Drew?
I believe so. I haven't read it.
Okay. Would you like to read it?
Oh, if you want to hear me say some words incorrectly.
I mean, that is part of this podcast.
Absolutely.
Become one of us.
Okay.
So tell me about the wine from the Nipple Valley.
The wine from the Nipple Valley.
Yes.
My parents, Charlie and Lorna, grew up a mile apart in Rushford, Napa Valley.
Nipple Valley.
Nipple Valley.
Nipple Valley.
After marrying, they farmed grapes and sold them to local wineries, yet Charlie became captivated by wine and winemaking himself.
Valid. Charlie's a good one.
In 1972, I joined my folks, and now I assume this is the person who's now making this and not me, myself.
I hope it's actually just like a chicken on the vineyard, and this is written from their perspective.
Unfortunately, it
This
is.
is very odd, Emily.
I joined my folks to make wine commercially, and we never looked back. Camus remains a hand-on family winery located where we began, in Rushford, a center point of Nipple Valley, beautiful vineyards. I worked with my parents for 30 years, and we remained generational, with 2 of my children helping to run farming and winemaking.
Aww.
That's awesome.
Charlie and Jenny are accomplished winemakers in their own right.
Oh, I love there's a little Charlie Jr. in there. Aww.
And like me, they feel that Camus should continue the way we began, hands-on and guided by successful generations. Camus is best known, not unsuccessful generations. They don't count.
No, fuck those
we
guys.
skip those ones.
Yeah. We call them out. You know, you look a baby in the eyes. You know. You fucking know.
Like Sparta of winemaking.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah.
Camus is best known for a singular expression of Cabernet. Dark, rich, and luxuriously soft, exuding natural characteristics that are born of Nipple Valley. Special climate and soil by Chuck Wagner, owner and winemaker.
Aw.
Not a chicken.
I hope it. Okay. I know it doesn't say that, but it says that. Herstory headcanon.
Emily's like, it says it now.
It says it now. I'm gonna write it in with marker. That is very sweet. I love his parents like grew up a mile apart, and they were growing grapes, and then the dad's like,
Let's get
you
together.
know what's let's get together. Yeah. Let's go and make some wine. And like it's become this multi-generational
thing.
Calling. Oh, I love that. Way to go, Chuck. You're a good egg.
You're a good grape.
He's a good grape on a good vine. Because we clipped all the unsuccessful vines off of there.
You know.
Called them.
You can tell.
As
You
we
can
do.
tell. Well, cheers to Drew and his wine and his lovely Pod Jesus presence.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Horrible cheers.
Well, okay. Kelley and I are drinking out of the plastic fucking patriarchy glasses. So
Good job.
the clink is not clinking.
Usually we clink with the bottle when we need to.
Here, let me just. Oh, okay.
Oh my God. I don't know what that sounded like, but it didn't sound good. There you go.
Here, beautiful. I also love a wine with a good story, like with a good biography.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see.
Because there's so many wines out there, you can't just sell me on taste.
Ooh.
You do get some of that valley in there.
Yeah.
Good.
Also, I know Nipple Valley was a joke, but I could cut diamonds with mine right now. So I feel like it was intentional. This is really good. And it is full bodied. And like it's kind of got that like thick velvety. Like when you were reading the description, I was imagining those chocolate commercials where they've got like dark velvet fabric and like melted chocolate coming down,
And
like
just wine flowing.
Yeah, and now it's just wine. It's so good. It's really good. Thank you for where'd you get this?
Got it at
He won it.
Yeah, Wines of the World.
Oh shit!
Hosted by Bear Creek.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So this wine also contributed to a charitable cause.
Yes, it did.
Fantastic. Yay. We get
How
to
nice.
You know what? In a world where it's hard to do anything equitably or morally, like you can't buy an apple without it contributing to like child slavery or something. It feels good to drink a wine that I can feel positive about all the way around. Oh my goodness. Well, Drew, thank you so much for sharing this with us.
No problem.
I appreciate you. I also learned recently, so as much as we like to call Drew our pod Jesus, you are also known as Ginger Jesus on another podcast, like other podcasts. Yeah, other podcasters.
You're not that ginger, though.
I was also a little surprised by that. I'm like, I can kind of see it in the beard, but I would never be like, he's a ginger.
Out in the daylight.
He's very brunette passing.
I mean, I think you are a brunette. I think he's a brunette with like ginger undertones, just like Justin is.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't call either of you gingers.
But I do love that Drew is like making the rounds, being mentioned on podcasts, and he's just some kind of variety of Jesus.
Is it the nerd podcast?
Yeah, Trapped Under Plastic.
Yeah.
Trapped Under Plastic.
I did not know what it was called.
Miniature painting.
Oh, is that John Boy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say Miniac, which is the other guy, because that's who I remember apparently.
Or Ninjan.
Ninjan. That's it. John Boy. I don't know.
John Boy.
I've literally never called him that, but I didn't.
And you will probably never call him that to his face.
I think I have to now.
Just next time you see him, hey, John Boy.
Hey, John Boy.
And don't acknowledge it. Just keep going.
Just pretend like it's something I've always called him.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
We double down.
I think we all do it.
You know what I should have done? So I was telling Kelley and Drew of an embarrassing story where a group of deaf women asked me to take their picture, and I did not pick up on the fact that they were deaf until way too late. And so I'm holding up the camera, and I told them, I was like, say cheese. And none of them responded. I was like, oh, that's cool. You know, they're not joiners. They're not, that's fine. What I should have done was double down and been like, okay, now say underwear, say that. Like, I just should have really doubled down on my embarrassment, because that's how you deal with making a mistake. You just continue to make the mistake worse and more uncomfortable for everyone around you.
It's valid.
Well, Kelley.
You get to go first. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I go first.
You
introed.
Dude, I was about to fucking scream.
I stuck with
I would have believed you.
I know.
I would have believed
I should
you.
have just kept going.
Oh, my God.
Who am I whining about?
Yeah, who are you? Well, I don't know. Who's whining about whom?
We're all whining about everything.
I'm in a constant state of
world,
wine.
yeah.
I was having
I wish I was in a constant state of wine.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say alcoholism sounds pretty good right about now. I was in such a like crabby bitchy place because of,
the universe right now.
Just the politics of the world, trying to erase trans people, trying to erase women, yada, yada, yada. And I went to boxing and was like trying to work it out. And I actually kind of cut my knuckle a little bit because I was hitting with the bag so hard. And I was just like mad. And I'm like,
I love that.
But I'm glad I channeled my feelings into exercise instead of drinking. That day.
Very healthy.
That day. Today I'm channeling it into drinking.
Yeah, why not?
It's called balance.
Life balance.
Yeah. I work out one day, I get totally wrecked the next.
Okay, ready now?
Yes.
Okay. I am whining about Jovita Idar. So it goes very well with your Spanish intro.
Okay, are your ovaries glowing right now? Because mine
Please tell me you're not covering the same woman.
I'm not, but there's a reason my intro was in Espanol.
Okay, that's funny.
Yes.
So Jovita was born in Laredo, Texas, Tejas. Just because I like to piss everybody off.
I love it.
We already made people mad in California, and now we'll piss off Texas. Tejas, which is beautiful.
Do you remember we were driving around in a truck? I mean, it was like a giant SUV. It wasn't a truck. But every time we had to pass someone in Texas, we would just start screaming, "Dumbass in Texas!" Yeah, because we were so anxious.
Yeah.
Because people do
not like driving in Texas.
They do not fuck around there. And their cars are basically tanks. Yeah. Everyone is driving a tank.
And you do. You got to do everything with confidence, because otherwise they're just going to run you over.
There's no room for Minnesota nice.
No.
It is fuck or get fucked.
So Jovita was born September 7th, 1885 in Tejas. She was born in Laredo, as I mentioned, and Laredo was, I guess I haven't looked it up, but at the time it was right on the border of the United States and Mexico.
Okay.
I assume it still is. I don't think the border has moved that much, but I don't know.
Yeah, since the 1880s?
Yeah. 1885. This was, I mean, once we owned Texas, I don't think it's really changed too much.
I was going to say, I'm going to look it up. You keep talking.
So at this time, people were able to move freely across the border, and the region was populated with a mix of Mexican Americans, of immigrants and migrants, and just a whole bunch of different people, because this is pre-U.S. Mexico War.
Oh,
not by much.
Yeah,
it comes into play. But so this was very much like when coming and going didn't matter as much.
It is right on the border.
Okay. So it's still on the border. And so, like I said, there was a lot of different people coming, and it was actually primarily Mexicans that lived there. And this was a newer area of white settlers at this time. And so Jovita's parents, Nicasio and Jovita. So technically Jovita is a junior. Just want to say that. We don't get that. We don't get that often.
This might be our first time.
I think we've had it like once or twice before, because they never actually call women juniors.
Right.
It doesn't happen.
It's technically correct.
Yeah.
Which, as we all know, is the best kind of correct.
We could call her Jovita II.
Jovita.
Which is still correct.
Jovita 2. Electric Boogaloo.
No, we don't need a fourth episode named that.
I think we need, you know what? I almost named our anniversary episode.
I figured you did, and I was very proud that you didn't.
I called it our redemption song.
Yeah. So both of her parents were of Mexican descent, and Jovita herself was the second of 8 children. So she had more opportunities than the majority of Mexican immigrants and Mexican American children in her area, because her father was not very wealthy, but her father was wealthy. He owned and published a Spanish language newspaper called La Cronica. And so they kind of had money. They were well known in the community. They had a lot of privilege. And Jovita's parents very much made sure their children understood that they were like, hey, you are privileged. Like, a lot of people in your shoes are not as well off as you, can't afford the education, all of this different stuff. And also the newspaper her dad ran was a lot about the different issues affecting the Mexican American community and stuff going on at the border and stuff like that. So they also grew up really well educated in general, but also on the socio-political climate of the time. And their parents were very encouraging, learn whatever you want, but also learn about our community and where you stand and the issues affecting Mexican Americans and Mexicans and just all of these different things, but also to form their own opinions of the things that are happening. They're we're not going to tell you how to feel or what to think about these issues. We'll give you the facts and you can decide for yourself.
You know, we've had a lot of women that we've covered who their story starts out with, you know what? Their parents rocked.
Yeah. Their
parents valued education and free thought and civic duty and care. We've covered a surprising amount of women whose parents were really fucking awesome.
Or at very least chill.
Yeah.
That they were oh, you want to go into science? Well, women usually don't do that, but if you want to, I guess that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every once in a while we get like, someone that's like, don't do that. And then the kid's like, but I'm gonna.
But what if I did?
Well, you think like Bessie Coleman, it was all because her brother told her she couldn't fly. And she was like, watch me. I'm gonna go to France, bitch.
I will say that is such, like, I'm an only child, so I don't really know what it's like. But I have the feeling
could
like
see me doing
when your
like
sibling tells you can't do something, that's how something happens.
It's like telling a 5-year-old you can't do this, and then the 5-year-old's like, you want to bet?
Drew, do you have that experience? You're not an only child, right?
I'm not an only child.
Yeah. Has your sibling ever told you can't do something?
I did have a sibling tell me that I couldn't join the Marines. And then I didn't.
Did you want to join the Marines?
I did at one point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that, actually.
I wanted to join the Army, and I wanted to be a paratrooper.
All I had to do was take the physical test, and then I would have been part of the Marines. And my parents said, after you get done with college.
Okay.
And I went.
Which is understandable.
Understandable.
And then by the time you got done with college, you were like,
I'm good.
Okay.
And then, but my sister, like when I first thought about joining, she's just like, you'll never make it in the Marines. You're too scrawny. And that
shots fired
pushed me to working out and getting better fit.
Mm-hmm. See, there it is, though.
Like it still pushed you to something, like maybe not the Marines, but it did push you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so
I'm sorry. I just
like, I don't know how to like transition from that.
I never knew, like, we went to high school together and I didn't know that you had military aspirations.
It was a time I didn't really talk to, like, because I'd go after school and go to the like recruiter office and
oh
hang out
my
there.
God, Drew. I'm learning so much more about Drew.
Yeah.
And just remember, everyone, he's Pod Jesus. He's white Pod Jesus. Imagine this dude in the Marines.
I know.
I actually,
great.
Clean cut hair.
I think you would do really well. I don't think I would recognize you without the ponytail and the beard.
That's the thing.
Though.
Like, I can't. Like I've seen you without the beard before, like with a short beard, and it was shocking. I don't think I've ever seen you with like anything shorter than, because I think even when I met you when you went to Florida, I think you had shoulder length hair, which was, I think, my sophomore year of college.
Yeah. There's a short stint where I had short hair when I got my job. And then...
Were we just not friends? Did I just not see you for a while?
There was a part of time before I just came out and came to your house 3 times a week.
Yeah. You know. I mean, now we're down to like 2. Which is sad.
Oh,
I'm sad.
Life always evolves, right?
Life finds a way.
Actually, at this point, I feel like we're devolving, but you know.
Well,
not us.
Oh.
The general. Anyways.
The gestures to literally everything else.
Everything else. So because of how Jovita's parents were, Jovita did get to attend school from an early age, and she excelled as a student. She actually graduated with her teaching certificate at the age of 18. So, like, she, like, when most people would finish high school, she was like, nah, I'm ready to, like, go into the workforce.
Man, good for her. I finished high school, and I was just like, I knew I was going to college. I had no idea anything beyond that. I was like, I'm just going to show up at college when they tell me to.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And then graduating college, I was like, well, shit, now I really don't know what I'm going to do.
Right? Same. So she taught at a school in Los Ojuelos, which is about 40 miles east of Laredo, but still kind of on that Mexican-American border. And at the time, Tejas was still segregated, but they were segregated into like white, black, Mexican, like everything.
Yeah.
If you were different, you had your own stuff. And the schools for non-white students received significantly less funding than the schools for white students. And we actually have a quote from Jovita on like how frustrating that like first year of teaching was. She said, quote, "There were never enough textbooks for for my pupils, or enough paper or pens or pencils. And if all of my students came to class, there weren't even enough chairs or desks."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm like, the whole first half of that is actually, I'm like, oh yeah, teachers are still buying their kids their own pens and like, I'm like, that's actually shockingly
relevant,
similar and relevant. Yeah. I do think that we have gotten to the point where we do have enough chairs and desks for all the children,
and generally enough textbooks, I would say.
Yeah.
But I think the worst thing is, you know, there is a like class of white kids that had everything they needed.
Oh yeah, and probably
then,
extra.
And
then nothing.
Then those guys had
Oh yeah,
not enough to even sit.
Yeah, it wasn't a lack of resource. It was poorly distributed resources.
Well, and I'm sure they were like, well, not all of your students are going to show up because why would they? And it's like, okay, but they do. And what are they supposed to do?
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, like she noticed that the schooling for these students was inadequate and...
No, sorry, my computer just decided to restart. So
hopefully
hopefully
Emily was making very panicked faces, and I was like, I hit the button.
No, you're fine. It's literally just because my screen went blue and it says working on updates, 5% complete. And I'm just like, well, hopefully
you can use your phone or use my computer or something.
But it definitely freaked me out for a second.
We love Microsoft.
Just
random updates.
I know. I'm kind of waiting for it because when I logged in when Emily first got here, it said it needs to restart, and I was like, later. So hopefully it doesn't do that in the middle of my story.
My laptop is also like 10 years old.
I mean,
so
mine's not too much older than yours or too much newer than yours. I guess it is. Mine's technically a tablet, not a laptop. Yeah. Anyways, so she noticed that it was inadequate and that even though that these Mexican American people I hesitated to put this term in my story and I hesitate to say it now, but I did like research on it, and apparently it has been taken back by the Mexican American community. It is no longer derogatory, but if it is derogatory, I apologize. I do not mean it that way. This is how she referred to herself and how other people have referred to her, which is Chicano, which is people of Mexican American descent.
Oh shit! I didn't know that. Okay, I'm bad. I didn't know it was derogatory.
I saw it and I was like, "Is it derogatory?" So then I went down a rabbit hole, and it was like it started as a derogatory term, and then the Mexican American people like took it back and were like, "No, screw you. That is our heritage."
Yeah.
So if anyone takes offense to it, that is not how I mean it.
Well, and I think it's important to say this is how she referred to herself
and her community,
and so honoring her identity and her labels.
Yeah. So if I use it sporadically throughout, that's kind of why. But yeah, she noticed that the Chicano people like paid taxes to pay for schooling for their children and all of this stuff, but they were denied entry to most of the schools in the area because of this color of their skin and their descent. And Jovita realized that, or maybe not realized, but felt that her teaching impacts or her efforts were not making the impact that she wanted to be able to better and change the lives of her students due to the fact of how chronically underfunded the schools were. So she ended up quitting teaching. And so at about the time she quit teaching is about the time of the Mexican Revolution. So the Mexican Revolution, just as a little background, is kind of a big deal, and I feel like I'm not going to do it justice because I literally just have like 3 sentences on it. But it was about a 10-year struggle, I guess is the best way to say it. Like technically, I guess it's a war, it's a revolution. But it was basically a bunch of different armed regional conflicts within Mexico where there was a bunch of different like sub-factions within Mexico all fighting for control of the country. And eventually it ended up leading to the American-Mexico War. Or
Mexican-American War.
Thank you. I was like, I feel like that's not right. Mexican-American War, and then that's a whole thing too. So, yay. But yeah, so that's going on in Mexico. And remember, she's in a town like just across the border.
Yeah.
This is when border crossing was still very easy, very simple. And she had family across the border and she had friends across the border and all of this stuff. So this is kind of in the background. As Jovita turns from teaching to journalism, remember her dad owned a newspaper.
That's right.
So she was like, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna start working toward meaningful and effective change. So she returned to Laredo because remember she had left to go teach. She came back and she began to work alongside her dad and 2 of her brothers, Eduardo and Clemente, for her father's newspaper. La Cronica, which is the Chronicle in English. I realized I said it earlier and then I'm like, I didn't say the English translation.
Well, my first guess was the Chronic, and I'm like, I don't think that's what they named the newspaper. I bet it's the Chronicle. Yep. Let's use some basic context clues, Emily.
And so when she joined the staff there, the majority of Laredo's population was still of Mexican descent. So I mentioned in the beginning of her story when she was born, it was mostly those of Mexican descent with some white settlers. At this point, almost 20 years later, it's still very much the same. There's a few more white settlers, but it's still primarily Mexican American people, but it was growing. This was a settlement that was growing. And unfortunately, the white settlers were eager to control the region, control the border. Racism was on the rise. Violent incidences were on the rise and becoming more and more commonplace.
Well, and unfortunately, this is a historical pattern when the racial demographic of a community changes significantly. There are people who react poorly. Like, there's backlash to it. Is it necessary? Is it warranted? No, but it happens. And this is very common. We still see this today with communities that take in refugees. It's like some of the people who live there are like, oh, we can't have those people. And then they realize it's actually a non-issue. Yeah,
it's very interesting. Or like sometimes those people are actually better behaved than the other people.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the town name, but there was a town name in England where they were taking a bunch of, I think it was Somali refugees. And there was a huge, like all these right-wing news articles were like, oh, this town is being taken over and overrun and blah, blah, blah. And there was some anxiety because it's like your town, the way it is significantly changing, not only with having a much larger population, but also culturally. And then they actually found, though, that this little town's economy was revitalized because they had all these new people living there who were spending money and contributing to the economy and working. And it's like, oh,
yeah, that is actually very, very common. And, that whole argument of like, oh, when you get immigrants or migrants or all these people like coming in, they're not contributing to our economy. They're just like using our resources. And it's like actually like statistically and historically, that is not close to accurate. So Jovita began writing for her father's paper and she often wrote under pseudonyms. And I tried to like dig into this and I couldn't find out if that's just because like, one, dangerous, two, she's a woman. But I couldn't find out which one it was or if it was both. So I'm going to go with probably both.
Yeah.
Because she would write about poor living conditions of the Mexican Americans, both of migrant workers and just in general. She would talk about supporting the Mexican Revolution. She would just talk about basically all of these different topics. And again, this is during a time where the Mexican American community in Texas in particular frequently faced violence, and lynchings of Mexican American people were super common.
Yeah.
Like people did not blink at it. They were just like, yep, whatever.
Well, they probably deserved it.
Like, I mean, people in the Mexican American community did, but like the white settlers were just like, yeah, exactly. Like, yep, it was what it was. And Jovita very strongly believed that education for everyone, not just the Mexican American people, but education was key to achieving economic mobility. And she was like, so if we can help our community and those viewed as like lesser than the whites, we can help ourselves achieve mobility upward and stop being oppressed. Which I'm like, yeah, that's pretty valid.
It blows my mind how often a huge part of the answer to these issues is just people being educated and being open to education.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, that's why attacks on education and educators and what people are allowed to learn are so common, because then people become aware of like what's going on and who they should actually be mad at.
Yeah. But Jovita wasn't just saying either like, oh, let's let ourselves be like educated by the white Americans. Let's let ourselves be whitewashed or Americanized. She's like, no, like That's the thing. White communities were using public education to Americanize and whitewash immigrants and people of color and stuff like that. And she's like, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we can use our shared experiences, particularly for minorities. We can use our shared experiences. We can use all of these different things that we have experienced that the white people haven't, and use that to empower ourselves. And she talked about, she would openly share about her experiences teaching at a segregated school. She would talk about how important bilingual education was so that immigrant and migrant students could receive a solid education while still remaining connected to their heritage, particularly for schools on the border. You know, it didn't sound like she was like, oh, Minnesota should be like all bilingual schools. And it's like, no, it's like at least where you see the need for it, that should be the standard, not the exception.
No, exactly. Because schools should not be in a position where they're like, well, you meet us where we are. No, the schools are supposed to meet students where they are, because the need is so varied. And if you force kids to fit into a mold to get education, it's not going to work. And so many kids are going to get left behind and marginalized. And then they're going to lose their love for education. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just...
Or they're not going to understand it. It's not because they're stupid. It's because at home they only speak Spanish, and at school they only speak English, and their brain just isn't that great at, like, if you're 5, you're not going to be able to understand.
You know what? One of the things I really loved about being in Costa Rica, okay, so like, I like to think I'm pretty, I'm a sharp cookie. Well, no, I'm a sharp cookie, mm-hmm. I'm well-spoken. I have a, decent grasp on my vocabulary. You know how I sound in Spanish? Like a fucking 2-year-old. Like a fucking
you may know what
infant.
You're saying, but you're still hesitant to do it.
Yeah. Well, and then even me trying to string together sentences, not having a deep grasp of the Spanish language.
Yep.
Like, you know how I say that in Spanish?
Yeah, but
no lo sé español. It's a very different sentence. Not a single person there made me feel bad. Yeah. Not a single person told me to learn to speak Spanish. Right. No one made me feel bad. Right. They were like people,
which is very different from America, because here someone misspeaks once and they're like, learn English, and it's like, really?
Or someone speaks in a different language to another person, like they're having a conversation.
They get so angry, and it's like, they're not even talking to you. Calm down.
I'm like, first of all, tell me the difference between 2 and 2, and then we will see if you have the authority to tell someone to learn English. Okay.
Yeah. So she very much like advocated for like bilingual schools where necessary, and like, how it could help.
But like, these kids aren't stupid. No. They're just learning a new skill. Language is a skill, and to make them feel stupid,
and the older you are,
so damaging.
The older you are, the harder that is.
It is. And English is a fucking mess of a language.
So in 1911, Jovita and her family organized the first Mexican Congress. This is in the United States, but that's what they called it. Mm-hmm. But this was to help unify Mexican Americans, like on both sides of the border, to fight the injustice that they were all facing. And this Congress discussed like a lot of issues, including education, lack of resources, how do we fight inequality? How do we fight racism? How do we like work to make lives on both sides of the borders better? And just to unite the Mexicans, whether that's American Mexicans or native born Mexicans, on issues that were affecting both of them.
Yeah. Because it's hard to enact change when the group that you're trying to improve things for is splintered.
Right.
And no one's on the same page.
Exactly. And I'm assuming this was a men's only thing. And the reason I say that I'm assuming this was a men's only thing is because after that Congress, Jovita with other women, made her own Congress.
Oh.
Or own group called La Liga Femenil Mexicanista, which is the League of Mexican Women.
Love it.
And she was actually elected their first president, and this was a feminist organization, mainly originally aimed at providing education to Mexican American students, but they also had, and this is a quote from like their, I'm trying to think of what it's called. Not like Bill of Rights, but like their mission statement. So, quote, to unify the Mexican intellectuals of Texas around the issues of protection of civil rights, bilingual education, the lynching of Mexicans, labor organizing, and women's concerns. End quote.
The League of Extraordinary Mexican Women.
Hell yeah. And so that's very much what this did. The women in this group worked to transform all of these injustices into and figure out plans of action focused on revealing and then fixing the social problems through actively making changes within their own communities. And a lot of the women that were in this league were highly influential women. So like, yeah, these were newspaper reporters or, you know, like heads of their community and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well, what I love this theme of people who are educated and have a level of power or privilege using it for good, and that's a virtue that her parents instilled in her. It's like, hey, you guys have it a lot better than some other people. Make sure you're using that for good.
Yeah,
because that's what we're doing, and I really love that theme.
Right. Yeah, and so some league members were like teachers, some were other sorts of professionals, and like they tried to like influence as much as they could, but like I said, the core was kind of that education of youth. And so they worked to develop social, political, and charitable organization for women that would actually end up providing like food and clothes to like immigrants or migrants in need. They actually often shortened their name just to La Liga.
La Liga.
Why not?
Love it.
They would host cultural events to celebrate Mexican heritage and like keep that heritage alive in the communities. And so for the women that weren't like the professionals or stuff like that, the rest of the women were just working class women that just wanted to work to better their communities. And they believed that the national borders, particularly right there in Texas and Mexico, should not separate women, and that women on both sides of the borders had the same needs and everything like that. So they offered their services in Laredo, Texas, and then Laredo, Texas eventually ended up with a sister city called Nuevo Laredo or New Laredo, which was just across the border in Mexico. So I think that's really cool. And during this time, Jovita herself really started kind of pivoting her focus on what she wrote for the newspaper. And she really started talking about women's suffrage, not specific to like Mexican women, but specific to like all women, and very much pushing and encouraging women to vote. She also promoted the education of women and girls. And she wanted to see advances in the safety and wages of women in the workforce. Mm-hmm. So she's doing the stuff to like educate children with La Liga, but then she's also like in the broader scope, like, hey, we need to kind of make things better for women and like let them vote. And so she's like on two fronts. She's like, let's educate the minority children, not just Mexican American children, but like also let's help our women and like look at all these things women can do.
Well, and again, it's the intersectionality of all of these issues, and it's she's addressing them all, which is really amazing. Because I'm like, you know how some people do their like laundry, they do like their colors and then their whites and their lights and their brights. I'm like, that's
separate towels. I wash towels and sheets separately.
But like, that's too much for me. And she's like, not only should we tackle the inadequacies in our education,
but we should also be allowed to vote.
But also, let's fight for women's rights. Yeah. And let's do this and that. And like, of course, it all interconnects and it's all part of one bigger issue. But I'm like, I can't even, like, all my laundry has to go in together because I can't handle like dealing with more than one type of laundry. Exactly. And she's like, let's tackle more than one social issue.
Yeah, let's tackle all the major social issues at once.
Systemic problems in the United States.
So both La Liga and the Congress actively worked for the advancement of their members and members of their community. And the quote is, quote, by holding study and learning sessions where culture is acquired and talent is developed. That's how they worded it, which I really like. So in 1913, Nuevo Laredo, so this is the sister city, was attacked because again, this is only 3 years into the the 10-year Mexican Revolution, but it was attacked. And one of her friends that was originally from that city that had moved to Laredo during this conflict was like, well, I'm going back. Like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to help the wounded. And Jovita and her formed what they named as the White Cross, or La Cruz Blanca. I don't know why I said Bianca, because I saw the L and said I. But yeah, La Cruz Blanca, or the White Cross, in comparison to America's Red Cross.
Love it.
Very much the same. Like,
yeah.
And that's exactly what they did. So literally just women from Laredo were like, we're going to go and help the wounded because no one else is.
Right.
And so, yeah, they crossed the Rio Grande River to help volunteer with the wounded. And Jovita in particular would go and kind of like set up a little base and like recruit different people to either like help defend the town or help rebuild or help like all of these things. So she would recruit people, but she would also like help with the nursing and just like organization. And yeah, they did a lot of good. So yay.
I love that. And again, tackling all of these, like they're tackling.
She was like, I need to put aside this to deal with this, but
also,
like I'm gonna deal with this in a big way.
They're dealing with all these like social issues and cultural issues, but also there's a war going on, and they're like, we're also gonna help make that suck less. Yeah. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Well, and it like that is actually how they were compared to, is like if you're wondering like what they did, like think of them as just a subsect of the Red Cross. Essentially. Right. They were not sanctioned in any way by America or anything like that.
Unofficial.
They literally were just like, we know people over there. Like, that's our heritage. That's our community. That's like their sister cities. They're like, we're going to go. We're going to cross the river and we're going to go.
Like, that's grassroots shit.
Oh yeah.
And I love it.
So later that year, kind of when things had stabilized a little, she would return to Texas and begin working for a different newspaper called El Progreso. I don't know why I kept everything in Spanish, because I like to challenge myself. Or The Progress. Just.
Oh, I thought it was about soup.
No, it's definitely about soup. Don't worry.
La sopa?
So while she
made Drew laugh.
Yeah, I saw that.
I take it.
I earned almost a spit
It was
take.
good.
It was okay.
I'm just so used to it that I'm like, it's not that funny.
I know. Kelley is like so unimpressed by me.
She gets so excited when I like chuckle.
Yes.
I don't. I'm so straight.
Kelley is very withholding of positive reinforcement.
I mean, it depends. It depends on how much wine I've had.
This is true. You get a lot easier to please when you've been drinking.
Drunk I get. Yeah. So I mean, that's a lot of people.
You also get a little angrier though.
It's okay. It's like social justice angry. But okay, so while she was at this newspaper, she actually wrote an article protesting President Woodrow Wilson's decision to send United States troops to the border. So this was during the time when, yes, President Woodrow Wilson sent troops to the border to protect the American citizens from the ongoing Mexican Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hard eye rolling here because I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me?
If you couldn't hear it,
like it didn't have anything to do with you. Just leave it alone. Anyways, so the United States Army and the Texas Rangers did not like that she spoke out, or that, you know, she was willing to be like, hey, this is not a good idea. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? So a group of Texas Rangers arrived at the newspaper headquarters to shut it down, to just be like, nope, you're done. Like, you're going to speak out against us. You're done.
Again, attacks on journalism, another key tool in the fascist playbook.
Yeah. So they arrived claiming, you know, the article was anti-American and like, how dare you, how dare you say bad things about us? You know, their egos were wounded.
This was the time before Chuck Norris, because Chuck Norris would fucking never.
Yeah, Chuck Norris would be like, no, guys, she's right. Like,
Walker was not. This is before Walker.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
Yes.
So Jovita, risking literal life and limb when she saw them coming, stood in the doorway of the newspaper and would not give them access to the building. Remember, this is a time where actually, like, the Texas Rangers in particular were actually known and had a reputation for violent acts against Mexican Americans and Mexican migrants. So she really was taking a huge risk by doing this and by being like, no. And she did. She stood in the entrance and was like, I have free speech. Like, it's in our Constitution. That's under the First Amendment. You have no right to be here.
Like, they could have shot her in it and like...
Oh, they probably could have just punched her in the face.
Yeah, and that
would have been
it.
like valid.
She resisted arrest.
Exactly. Surprisingly, the Rangers left with little, there was a little bit of a standoff, but like no violence, no, like words were exchanged and that was it.
They like did not know what they were like.
They were like, what is this woman doing? I don't understand. The boobs confused them.
This doesn't usually happen.
Yeah, exactly. So they left for a day. They came back the next day when Jovita was not working and not there and not able to really do much.
God damn.
At this time, the news...
They were afraid of her.
Probably. It's the boobs.
I'm also very
at this
scared
time,
of
this
boobs.
newspaper wasn't super, like, populated. So, like, it sounds like really no one was there the next day when they came back. So it's not like, oh, other people just let them in. Like, it sounds like Jovita was, like, one of the last, like, people running this paper kind of a thing. But, yeah, they probably waited and watched is my assumption, but I don't know. But they returned the next day when Jovita was not there, completely ransacked the building, destroyed the printing presses, effectively shutting down the newspaper because what are you going to do at that point?
Yeah. But also let's remember this is law enforcement attacking a newspaper because the newspaper was critical of the government.
Yeah. So even though the Rangers had shut down that newspaper, Jovita didn't really let that stop her, and she continued to write and advocate for fair treatment of Mexican Americans. For, you know, like if you're gonna send people to the border, send aid, not military, like all of this different stuff. She went back to her father's newspaper. And unfortunately he would die a few years later, but she would she would just step into his shoes and start not only writing for the paper, but also being like the editor and like running it.
I fucking love her.
Because of course she did.
Yes.
Eventually she would like step away, and actually a few years later she would marry a man named Bartolo Juarez, who was a plumber and tinsmith.
Bartolo, can you
I know,
bring that name back?
Name.
Can you imagine like Bartolo, get down from the cabinet? That's not safe.
That'd be so cute.
Bartolo.
Emily, you should name one of your cats Bartolo.
Bartolito. Oh my God. Because I call Arthur Arturito.
Yeah, that would be a perfect name for a cat.
Bartolito. Get down. Bartolito, that's not for you.
Yeah. So they would move from Laredo to San Antonio, Texas. Because thinking about it, like if you're a plumber and a tinsmith, you probably need to be in a bigger city to have a decent amount of work. Mm-hmm. But it didn't really slow Jovita down. Like she became very active in the Democratic Party of Texas, like very much continued to work for equal rights for women. She became the editor of a publication for her local church called Heraldo Cristiano. I think it's like the Christian Herald.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was like, oh, wait, that guy that cracked open Al Capone's safe and there was nothing in it. Yep. And it was the biggest like letdown in history. Yeah, Geraldo.
No. And she remained committed to volunteering in her community. So like she would volunteer all the time in Laredo or go to Nuevo Laredo. And here she was like, I'm not going to stop that. So she volunteered at donated her time.
There we go.
Also known as volunteering. She would work at local hospitals and work as like for free as an interpreter for Spanish speaking people that would come into the hospitals, because a lot of times they didn't have interpreters, because why would they? She started a free kindergarten for children.
Oh, little baby.
Yeah.
Bartolito, get down from there. It's too high for you. It's too big for Bartolito.
She was known for saying, like, in a lot of the things she did, when you educate a woman, you educate a family.
That's true.
Which is very true.
Absolutely. Well, because, I mean, when you think about it, women have been put in the traditional position as like the stewards of the household, and they raise the kids, they run the house, you know, and so they instill their knowledge into their kids.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
And yeah, like people bring things home with them, and yeah, particularly women, because like, yeah, like you said, they're the heads of households. it tends to trickle down. So yeah,
the only time trickle down works.
Exactly. So she would pass away on June 15th of 1946. She was only 60 years old.
Oh shit.
And she had a pulmonary hemorrhage, probably due to the advanced tuberculosis she was suffering from.
No.
So
God
that's a
damn
thing.
it.
Tuberculosis.
Dude, drink every time tuberculosis like ruins one of our stories.
Or Nazis.
We would be dead. Oh my God, we'd be dead.
We'd definitely be dead.
We would absolutely be dead.
But legacy.
Okay.
So some people might actually know who this woman is and might be like, Kelley, this is way too popular of a woman to be covering, because the way I found out about Jovita is she is actually one of the women on the Women Quarters series, but I had no fucking idea who she was. She's the one that it's just like the picture of a woman and there's like no text or anything. It's just the woman.
Okay. So
Very cool.
I like looked at her wiki and I found that picture, and it does have like words on her like bus,
and it has a lot of, it's like a Mexican independence, and like it talks a lot about like,
it has like
education and
La Cruz Blanca. But yeah, I wouldn't have had any idea from looking who that is.
Because of our podcast, my mom gave me like a shit ton of quarters that I then got to sort through and then give back all the extras. It was fun. It was a fun time. Love my mother, but I was like, really? I guess other people also just like donate quarters. I'm like, Mom, how much money have you scammed people out of in my name? And she's like, that's not how it is, Kelley. And I'm like, okay, that's true. They are willingly, because they like, she tells people like, oh, my daughter has a women's history podcast. So people are like, oh, hey, there's these women's history quarters. Like,
I had no idea you were making a women's history quarter collection.
I'm actually making 2 because I'm making one for you as well. Actually, technically, I'm making 3 because I have like one for me, one for you, and one for the podcast.
Oh my God. So, and your mom has just been collecting these?
Yeah, she literally brought down like a giant like gallon bag of quarters and was like, here. And I'm like,
when was this?
It was a few months ago now.
How could you not tell me?
Yeah. I keep meaning to get the booklet to like put all the quarters in, and I
forget. God, this is
How could you not tell me? I have the booklet.
I did not know that.
Oh my God.
There we go. We're all on the same page now.
God bless Sue. So at least we're both outraged, Drew. We were both left out of the loop.
Everyone's so mad at me.
I love going through quarters. Who doesn't?
I do too, actually.
Remember when they came out?
It's something I've been doing since I was like little, because my dad literally kept like buckets of change. And so when the state quarters came out, and then the national park quarters and all of this stuff. Yeah, it was a whole thing.
Oh my God. I'm excited.
But so I initially had put her on my like list of women to cover during that whole escapade. And I was like, all of the rest of the women, I know who they are.
Yeah.
Whether like we've covered some of them.
Yes.
Or it's like Eleanor Roosevelt, or like, you know, people like Harriet Tubman, where it's like they're actually taught in schools kind of. But like this one woman, I was like, okay, who the fuck is this person? Like, so like I Googled it, and then I put her on my list. And then like a month or 2 after that, Caitlin, sister of the podcast, like messaged me a short about her. And I was like, oh yeah, she's on my list to do. And so I thought it would be good to do during Women's History Month. So her quarter was released in 2023. I think there's like one more run of quarters. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Thank you, Drew.
Drew is the quartermaster.
And I have most of them. I think I only got one of hers though, because like I don't know if it's actually less printed or just less common, but yeah. So that just to talk about this side note, and then I'll talk about her legacy. But this was a thing the United States Mint decided to do, and God, if they don't finish it, I'm gonna go punch somebody. But they started in we all know exactly who. It started in 2022, and I think it's supposed to go to, I thought this year, but it might actually already be done.
Yeah, doesn't it go until 2025?
I thought so, but this one just says 5 women for 3 years, so that would have been last year. But I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more. They've released 5 women for 2022, 2023, and 2024. And like I said, like we've covered most of them. There's a few on the list like we haven't, whether they're too big or other women we haven't heard of that are on my list. But like it's a really cool thing. So if like you want, if collecting Herstory stamps is out of your price range, because some of those are really expensive because they were printed literally once a very long time ago. Yeah, I'm still mad about that one too. Some of like I want the Sybil Luddington stamp. It looks really fucking cool, but I'm like, I don't want to spend $50 for a stamp I will never use. Like
This is true. Yeah.
I'll just print a picture of it maybe. Okay, no, there is. Sorry. 2025 is the last year.
Okay.
It says there was an article at the very beginning of the year that says U.S. Mint announces final 5 women as it finishes its quarters program in 2025.
I was going to be so sad I didn't have anything to collect this year.
Yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Like
what
the book,
will
the
I
booklets went
hyperfixate
through.
on?
And so like, I think they release, so there's 5. So it's like one every like half a quarter almost, like give or take. I usually don't notice until I get my change back. And then I'm like, ooh, why is this one so shiny? And then I'm like, ooh, it's one of the new ones. But yeah, they're, and actually I just noticed looking at the list of the final 5, one of the women I intend to cover soon is on the list of the final 5.
Hell yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, so that's how the story of me covering Jovita came about, was she's on a quarter that you can collect. And it's actually a really cool thing. There is also a woman named Gabriela Gonzalez published a book about transborder modernity, race, respectability, and rights, which was actually based on her PhD dissertation. And it contains a lot of Jovita and her work and stuff like that, because she made a huge impact on transborder relations and all of this different stuff. And not just Jovita, but like her family and everything they did. There are multiple profiles out there if you go and like Google her name. The National Women's History Museum has talked about her, the Women in Texas History, which surprises me, to be frankly honest, because I could see Texas just being like, no, we're not going to talk about it.
Yep.
No offense, Texas.
Well, it just shows her impact, right? That they couldn't erase her from
Exactly.
their history.
Yeah.
The Oxford Encyclopedia of Latinos and Latinas covered her story, as well as the New York Times in their Overlooked piece.
Yes.
They kind of, what was weird about that one is like they covered her in like a weird like mix of like a bunch of people, which usually they're overlooked, or like one single person that they're like, hey, we don't know why we didn't do a write-up on them. And I mean, it's racism and sexism. I can tell you why.
Yep.
Like, don't deny it. But yeah, so she was very much, it was just like weird because it was like a whole bunch of people at once. And so it was like, it was interesting because like when I was doing my research, usually if there's an overlooked article, it's like second or third from the top. Like,
yeah,
New York Times has their SEO fucking down.
Oh yeah.
It didn't even show up on the first page of my Google results.
Really?
So I'm like, I have judgments.
I was going to say, because their domain authority
yeah,
is
exactly.
top-notch.
Like usually they sometimes they even show up in the little ads section at the top.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I was surprised. I actually had to like go and look for it. And it was good. But,
it was helpful for your research.
Exactly. Kind of. I had mostly it finished by the time I found the article, but, it was still nice to read. And then as part of Hispanic Heritage Month in 2020, the Google Doodle on September 21st paid homage to her.
Oh, yay.
Particularly her famous blockade of the doorway of the newspaper. And if you hovered over it, there was a little tiny thing that talked about her 135th birthday. And I was like, Google! Like, really? You couldn't do better than a little hover box? Also, it was 2 weeks after her actual birthday. And I'm like, God damn it, Google.
Okay.
They tried, but not really.
They only get a participation medal.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say the Google Doodle is really cool, though, because it's her standing in front of the El Progreso.
But I'm like, honestly, I
just
think
with her hands on her hips, just being like,
I think if I was Google, I would have just like left out the birthday piece. I would have just been like, we're talking about Hispanic Heritage Month. Like, this is a woman who like made really big contributions to it, and just don't don't talk about the birthday. Yeah. Or like talk about it in the little like blurb when you click on the doodle. But like, the fact that it was like almost an afterthought in the hover box, I was like, oh, Google.
Oh, Google.
But yeah, she did. She made huge impacts on the education for Mexican Americans, but also just for minorities in general. She was like a little bit into suffrage. She helped like with so many different things, and just mainly she just really brought attention to the plight of the Mexican American people and Mexican American women and all of these different things. And she didn't stop until like tuberculosis was like, no, you're done.
Tuberculosis took her.
Exactly.
Because no one else could.
Tuberculosis was like, if I don't stop this woman, she might stop me.
I mean,
she was not in the medical field at all, but you never know.
Just, I have the feeling that her energy, like tuberculosis, was like, we got to shut this down. This is too good. This is too good and pure.
That is Jovita Idar.
I'd never heard of her.
Yeah, this all spawned from my mom giving me a shit ton of quarters.
I love that you're like, she might be a little too famous. I'm like, well, I haven't heard of her, so this can just be for me. That's kind of
what I figured. I was like, this is for everyone that, like me, is going to look at this quarter and go, who the hell is this?
Yeah.
And now you can say, I heard about it on a history podcast. I know about this woman. Let me tell you.
The podcast is called Whining About Herstory. You should go and listen to it and rate it 5 stars and join their Patreon and just like support the crap out of them.
Yeah. They're fantastic.
Yeah, we are fantastic.
They're like little worms in your ear, but like in a good way.
We're like crack in your ears.
We're like that cute little worm from Labyrinth.
Your dealer.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love the little
scarf.
With a little scarf.
The Cockney accent.
Oh
I'm not going to try to do a Cockney accent.
Watch out for the labyrinth.
That's pretty good.
Shit, you get crazy in there.
It's gonna get cray.
Shit do get cray in the club.
In the club.
In the club. Drew, had you ever heard of Jovita Idar? Had you ever heard of her?
No.
Okay, see, this is for both of us.
Good.
Yeah.
I mean, it was for me
Sorry.
too. Like, it was to satisfy my curiosity, and then I was like, I need to bring this to everybody else.
I'm just like, Drew's over here like, I wrote the Overlooked article, bitch.
Yeah, right? He's like, I'm secretly some like ghostwriter for the New York Times.
And you're over here being
Your
like,
SEO sucks.
it was okay, I guess.
No, it was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you.
I like that you're saying thank you like you're the one that just talked about this woman.
Because you will never accept thanks for the good things you do. I try all the time. And you're like, no.
I don't deserve praise.
Yeah, so I will.
Thanks.
Yes.
Kelley, you did a beautiful job.
Thank you, Drew.
That was beautiful.
It was. I
Wow.
felt that in my soul.
Good. I was going to say that was a huge character growth moment for Kelley.
It was.
Actually
I'm like
acknowledging
crying now.
praise.
I know. Like trying not to. I'm like,
Kelley, you're so beautiful.
let's keep rolling. That
Damn
one's
it!
never going to happen.
Damn it.
Let me pour some more wine.
Okay.
Well, you're pouring me more wine.
Yeah.
Okay.
You live here.
I do. I don't have to go anywhere. I do have to work tomorrow, but
Ew.
it's fine. I don't have to work till like 9.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm supposed to work at 8, but I don't think I have a client at 8.
Sweet.
I guess I'll find out later.
Kelley's just,
When I left work today, I didn't have anyone scheduled.
therapy.
Whether or not that will change.
Being a therapist is a lot of fucking around and finding out. I'm kidding.
Not really, but like kind of sometimes.
So our ovaries are definitely glowing because I am also covering a
Mexican American
Central American, not Mexican American, but Spanish speaking mujer.
Ooh.
Today I am whining about Francisca Pancha Carrasco Jiminéz and her pocket full of bullets.
Oh.
So while
she always comes up with catchy subtitles. I never do, and then I make her do it for me.
yeah, yours is La Liga.
Yeah, that's fine. Every once in a while, I'll come up with one.
You will.
And like twice when I've done that, she's like, I'm going to name it this. And I'm like, okay, I came up with a subtitle for once, but okay.
If you didn't write it in the notes, though, I don't always know.
Yeah, I try to. I'll like write at the top, or I'll put it in like the title.
Yes. So, a country under siege, a self-declared president, manifest destiny.
Are you actually going to get
Colonialism.
into the
slavery.
Okay.
And one woman with a pocket full of bullets who wasn't having any of it.
Hopefully a pocket full of bullets for other people. Like not,
Today, I'm winding
I
up
work on the dark side of...
Francisca Pancha Carrasco Jiminéz.
Ooh.
So I'm going to call her Pancha throughout the story. So Pancha is like a cutesy nickname for Francisca. I didn't really see the phonetic connection.
I don't either, but we'll roll with it.
Yeah, it's cute.
I like it, Pancha.
So born on April 8th, 1816 in the then capital of Cartago, Costa Rica. So
Costa Rica.
Well, because I went to Costa Rica, I was like, oh shit, I should have looked up some women in Costa Rica and so now I'm doing it after the fact. So born in Cartago, Costa Rica, Pancha was of mixed American, African, and European heritage. She broke gender norms by learning to read, write, and how to ride a horse.
How to ride a horse?
And I bet she could do all three at the same time. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
She could also draw a horse from memory, which is truly the most amazing thing about her. No, I'm kidding.
I was like, Jesus, I can barely draw a horse by looking at a picture of a horse.
I can barely understand what a horse is when I'm looking at it. I'm like, none of this makes sense, and it's all entirely too big.
I do all stick figures, so.
Yes.
That's a horse. What? That's a horse.
I just write the word horse.
Yeah, there you go.
So
I just play basketball.
I was like,
wait, someone will get it. Someone will get it.
I'm actually very proud of you.
I was hoping you would be.
Okay, I was enjoying.
I don't know if Drew understands.
I'm lost.
The basketball.
When you
horse,
play basketball, if I make a shot and Emily has to make the exact same shot, it's called horse.
Because you get a letter and you spell out horse, and whoever spells horse first loses.
I was so bad at basketball. We did pig.
Which is crazy. Okay.
Okay.
3 letters.
You are the tallest dude, though.
I know. I'm like, you should be good.
I'm 5 feet. Kelley is not that much taller than me.
And I'm literally 5'5.5.
But basketball, we know horse. And, Mr. 6 feet McGee over here is no, we played pig.
What?
I could touch the rim without getting on my tippy toes, but it was just entirely too much. We had to play pig.
Which I love. But yeah, I'm glad Emily got it, and then I'm glad she appreciates it so much.
Mm-hmm.
I did. So I was enjoying a THC bevy while watching Arcane with Egg the other night. And there's a character in there named Vander. Okay. And I'm not going to give anything away. It's a very good show. Everyone should watch it. But we made Egg. Fuck. I keep doing that. Egg made a joke about if that character had a son. Or I was like, oh, and his name is Van. Do you think they call him Minivan? And Egg, the look he gave me, because he wanted so badly to be disgusted, but it was such a good pun that he's like,
so the look I've given you before, where I'm like, that's awful and great, and I don't know how to feel about this.
He was sucking on his teeth, and he's like, okay, that was really good. I'm like, I know.
I'm pretty sure I've said those exact words and done that exact thing to you.
Hi, Emily is so on top of her puns. So, So the world that Pancha was born into was one of opportunity, excitement, and conflict. So just the year before she was born, on September 15th, Costa Rica had declared its independence from Spain, which had first colonized the area in the 1500s. Spain was all up in Central America, colonizing the shit out of it.
I mean, really, everyone was.
Everyone was, but that was
Spain was the chlamydia of Central America at the time.
Yeah. It was. They colonized so much in Central America, it wasn't the clap. It was more like an applause.
Oh, that was good.
That's from
I'll
Archer.
give you that
I
one.
stole that
I
joke.
know, but I'll still give it to you.
So
if you hadn't said that, other people might not have known.
Here's the thing, though. The people who know would have been like, Emily, don't you fucking plagiarize Archer.
You got to quote your sources.
I have to cite my sources.
Sure. Still good, though.
I won't cite my sources in my notes, but I will cite
the
jokes
do.
I steal. So with independence came the debate of how the country would move forward. 2 primary factions emerged. The imperialists in Cartago, who wanted Costa Rica to join the Mexican Empire, which
Mexican
was a thing.
Empire.
Yep. And San Jose, the Republicans in San Jose who wanted full independence. So the imperialists are like, hey, the Mexican Empire seems to have their shit together. We should just join them. And the Republicans
What year
are like,
was this?
This was 1815.
Okay, so they got like 100 years before shit goes wrong in the Mexican Empire.
I mean, history is just a constant series of shit going wrong. It's like
this big circle. It's like that saying,
when
history repeats itself.
You know when you trip and you get like 5 trip steps in before you either fall or catch yourself? We're still just trip stepping. Constantly. So there's the imperialists who are like, let's join the Mexican Empire. The Republicans who are like, let's just be independent. So this led to the country's first civil war, which the Republicans won in 1823. And after this, the capital was moved from Cartago to San Jose. And I have been there, and it is still the capital today.
Is it awesome?
It is lovely.
It was lovely. It was really cool. People there were super nice. The area of the city that we stayed in, there were a lot of cool bars and restaurants that we could walk to. There was this one, it looked really witchy. It was called I don't remember the name, but it was like something in Persephone. And it was a really witchy looking bar. And we went in and we're like, hey, can we sit down? And the server is like, yeah, but do you want to go to the speakeasy? And we're like, oh my fucking God. And behind this faux beer fridge
That's
that
awesome.
is a door. And it was amazing. I was like, oh my God.
Sit here? Do you want to sit in the speakeasy?
Yeah.
It was always the speakeasy.
It was amazing. I was like,
go.
if this was a young adult novel, this is where I find out that I'm secretly a witch and get initiated and get my wand and everything. It was amazing.
I don't think they would call it a speakeasy.
Persephone is
Yes.
The
Greek
goddess of the underworld.
Yeah, I have to look up the proper restaurant name, but the reason I chose it was because I had pictures of crows on the outside. I was like, crows, fucking crows. I must go to the crow bar.
That sounds right.
So if all of this upheaval and civil war and, political distress wasn't enough, in 1822, Costa Rica was rocked by a major earthquake. Yay!
Natural disasters.
They always come at the worst fucking time. So Cartago was nearly totally destroyed, and the tsunami that the quake generated wreaked havoc on the country's east coast. So the residents of Cartago came together to begin rebuilding the city, which would take 7 years. And I was looking into some of the volcanoes around San Jose and Cartago because there are a fuck ton.
Really?
And it didn't really factor into the story, but one of the volcanoes I visited while I was in Costa Rica, during this time period and the next time period, actually erupted and fucked up a bunch of shit. So
yeah, because the quakes and stuff will do that.
So there's a lot going on, but I was like, oh, I wonder what volcano they're talking about. And I looked up all the volcanoes around San Jose and Cartago. I was like, oh my God, they are just surrounded by so many volcanoes. You can't spit without hitting a fucking volcano. Although driving up the roads to get to them is beautiful but horrifying because they are teeny tiny roads and they are not well paved and there are cows on leashes just hanging out.
Cows on leashes?
Yeah, just tied to trees and shit.
That's a bit weird.
Because they're grazing.
It's still a bit weird.
It's amazing. So at the time that all of this is happening, Pancha was only 6 years old. And while we don't know what her memories of this time were or how these events affected her family, we can imagine how it impacted Pancha. Growing up surrounded by people who worked together to rebuild their community after a disaster. And what it must have been like growing up in a country that was finding itself while surrounded by a resilient community, which refused to stay down.
Which is good.
And when we see her actions later, I think I'm fair in making connections to those things.
Well, I think, it reminds me of my story. And how it's she grew up in that culture of hey, this is what's going on and this is what you need to know. And there's all these people coming together and all of this stuff.
Yeah. So we don't know much about Pancha's life during this time. Oh. She was married twice. First when she was 18 years old, but neither marriage.
Of course we know about that.
Yep. Neither marriage lasted. Look, I'm coming for 18-year-olds who are married.
Yeah.
It don't last.
No.
marriage
It still doesn't. That is
when
still a thing.
when you get married at 18, that shit don't last. And if you know that like friend of a friend of a friend whose marriage lasted, you're not them.
They're
Stop
the
pretending.
anomaly.
They're the exception.
The people
that,
that
proves the
do
rule.
last is the anomaly.
Yeah.
And then my second question of that is also,
Are they happy? Yes.
Is it a healthy relationship and are they happy?
Dude, I just got
and if the answer to
done-
both of those is yes, again, they are the anomaly. They are the 1% of relationships.
I just got done hate watching Super Nanny.
God.
And so many of those people, you can, like, they got married very young, which here's the thing. I'm not dunking on people who get married
I was pretty young when I got married.
But
I wasn't 18, but I was pretty young.
I'm dunking on child brides. I'm not dunking on, like, people who get married young, but it's so crazy where it's like, we have 6 kids and we don't agree on discipline. I'm like, was this never a conversation or were you too busy popping out kids to talk about how to actually raise them?
That's exactly it.
Like, that's the thing that blows my mind. It's just things that it's like, how was this never a discussion? Really?
Yeah.
Was there not adequate time between prom and getting married for you to talk about raising your fucking 12 kids?
No, because they were busy doing the nasty
Yeah.
at prom.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they got married because,
What happened?
What else are
What
they
happens
supposed to
at
do?
prom comes out after prom 9 months later. So, So we do know that Pancha was politically active, having led a mounted all-woman brigade through the streets in protest of Honduras's dictator.
I love that.
I did not get into Honduras's dictator, but
No, but I love the mounted
Yes.
brigade.
of women. Yes. So the part of what was happening in Central America at this time is a bunch of countries declared independence from Spain, and it was like a warless independence where they were just like, we're independent, fuck you. And then they were trying to figure out, like, okay, are we going to be like independent as our own country? Are we going to join another country or their empire? And, figuring that out. So there was a lot of change and a lot of unknowns at this time. Like, it's at this, while it's this amazing opportunity for change and growth and like really anything is possible, it's also fucking terrifying because you don't know what your country's doing or what the country next to you is doing or the other country next to you or the country below you. Like, everyone is trying to figure their shit out at the same time.
Everyone's in chaos.
It is. And then, of course, people are going to take advantage of that, a la Honduras's dictator. So, but we're going to leave Pancha for a moment and travel north to meet another key player in our story, William Walker.
Ooh.
And now he is not Walker, Texas Ranger. Quite the opposite.
So
I would say.
he's the Texas Rangers of my story.
He is. So born in Nashville, Tennessee in 1824, William Walker was an ambitious young man who embraced the 19th century doctrine of manifest destiny, which basically said that U.S. settlers were destined to expand across America and entitled to it. Take it. It's yours. You deserve it. So don't tell me, don't give me this whole bullshit of like, you have to work for what you get. It's like, no, it was literally our country's philosophy to just, no, you deserve this.
God-given right.
Jesus Christ.
It is your God-given right as white Americans to take land and to expand as far as you can. Colonialism.
Yeah.
Yay.
Oh, you were here first? No, you weren't.
Yep. So during this time, there was a popular method of colonization called filibustering. And this is a whole new term, like a whole new use for this word. When I think filibuster, I think like running out the clock during like a Senate or Congress meeting.
Yeah.
This is a little different. So basically, people from the United States would lead an unauthorized military expedition into a foreign country or territory, typically newly independent countries in Latin America. They would take advantage of the instability of the newly independent country
Of course.
and incite rebellions or insurrections in order to establish American colonies. This would lead to opportunities for wealth, resources, political power, and expanded territory. So basically, they're like, ooh, all these countries are suddenly independent and they're trying to like find themselves. Let's take advantage of that and stir the shit up until we just end up in charge.
That's
Yeah.
gross.
Exactly. Like let's add to the chaos to have it work in our favor.
Exactly. So this was the perfect career path for Walker's sense of entitlement and his desire for wealth and power. I mean, dude knew his skill set. So he became a filibuster, or as known in Spanish, filibustero.
Okay.
So I won't get into too much detail about Walker's filibustering conquests, but let's just say he had a habit of leading his unofficial army into an area, declaring himself president, and then getting pushed back out. He was a starter. He was not a finisher.
Yeah. He's not the person you call in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. So in 1855, Walker set his sights on Nicaragua. Like Costa Rica, Nicaragua had become independent from Spain in 1821. Like I said, a lot of these territories, these countries were like, we're independent now. So after being part of the Mexican Empire for a while, and then the United Provinces of Central America, because again, all of these different countries are like trying to figure out what their whole makeup is. It's like, it makes me think of that high school project where they're like, okay, make a country. And like the fun part is designing the flag, and then everything else is like, wait, how does this actually fucking work? And you realize you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you're like, democracy, sure.
And that's not a comment on like the leadership or the intellect of people in Central America at this time. It's just, it's complicated.
Yeah.
And when you can really like, it's almost this abundance of choices, and you've got all these different people with different viewpoints, you know, kind of fighting for what they want. And then you've got this dick coming in and being like, I'm also at the party. Woo!
Yeah.
It's a lot. So Nicaragua became fully independent in 1838. You know, they were a part of the Mexican Empire. They're like, this doesn't pass the vibe check. They were part of the United Provinces of Central America. They're like, I'm not here for it.
Doesn't pass the vibe check.
Yeah. And now they're independent. And during this time, Nicaragua had become a key trade route between New York City and San Francisco during the gold rush, making the country economically and strategically attractive. So people go south from New York, they cut through Nicaragua, and then they go up to California. And that's how the gold is getting back and forth. So two primary factions, liberal elites of Leon and conservative elites of Granada, rose and struggled for power. So we've got the liberals and the conservatives. And this led to war in the 1840s and 1850s. Trying to gain power, the liberal elite actually invited filibustero William Walker to join them in the fight. Mistake.
Oh, yeah.
The result was Walker once again declaring himself president of Nicaragua, and his quote-unquote presidency included starting an Americanization program, declaring English as the official language and bringing in more colonists from the U.S. and reinstating slavery. He's just like such a cool guy. He's also like 12. He's so young too.
Sounds like a 12-year-old.
I mean, kind of. Like an entitled, like the 12-year-old who was never told no.
You'll do what I want, and you'll do it now.
I definitely had a friend like that growing up, that like her parents couldn't say no because she would just throw a fucking tantrum. And I hated it. Like even growing up, I'm like, this is not okay. But that was also the friend that we were like, we want to go to the zoo. So we're going to ask you to go to the zoo because we know we'll get to go to the zoo. You know,
because
like it was one of those things. But like, yeah,
us.
like that is what that person reminds me of, is that person that like has never been told no, or when they get told no, they know how to get around the no, which is usually screaming and yelling and throwing a fit, or in this case, causing chaos.
There was a lot of that on Super Nanny. And I'm just like, I cannot believe grown-ass adults are letting a 3-year-old bully them. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
If my parents took us to the grocery store, if we cried, they walked away from us, and we'd be on the floor, and they would turn the corner, and just, we would be like, oh, we got to catch up.
So I was actually,
done.
I picked up baby Jay from daycare recently, and I took him to the park, and we were having a great time. We were playing this game where like a dragon stole our candy, and we're chasing down the dragon and fighting the dragon. And I was like, okay, 10-minute warning, we're going to go in 10 minutes. 5-minute warning, we're going to go in 5 minutes. 2-minute warning. And I was like, okay, we have to go home now. And he was running away and not having it. And I was like, we need to go now. And he's like, no. I'm like, okay. I was like, all right, well, I'll tell your mom that, you say hi. I'm going to head out. Catch me outside. And I start walking away. And he like furrows his brow and stomps his foot and goes, no. And I'm like, then come on. And he toddled right after me. And that was it.
Yeah.
But I was like, dude, I will leave you here. And he knew I would. But like my mom used to do that with me, but it's, I'm not going to plead with him. I'm not going to bargain with him. I set the expectation. I gave him warnings. And then I was like, okay, well, if you don't want to come, then I'm going to go.
Yep.
I'm not staying here because you want to. And like, he's a good kid, but he's 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's the kind of shit that you don't negotiate with terrorists
And
who are 2
obviously,
years old.
Walker never had that.
No.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. But if you thought that Walker was going to stop at Nicaragua, which I think none of us did, you haven't been paying attention to anything we've said over the past 6 years. In 1856, Walker invaded Costa Rica, initiating the Filibuster War. Costa Rica joined other Latin American countries in fighting against Walker. And a lot of this stuff I'm simplifying for the sake of storytelling. There's a lot of complex, like geopolitical, Central American history going on here. But again,
not a serious history podcast.
Not a serious history podcast. 1 star would recommend. So now 40 years old, Pancha was not about to sit on the sidelines while this rando from the United States came in and tried to take over. She burped in his face. Herstory headcanon. She volunteered for the Costa Rican army as a cook and a medic. So Pancha's drive and courage would lead her to the front lines of the fight against Walker at the Battle of Rivas. So the city of Rivas was a key city in the gold rush trade route in Nicaragua. Walker and his forces had been pushed back to Rivas by the Costa Rican army. And on April 11th, 1856, they and Walker's forces came to blows again at the Battle of Rivas. There's actually like multiple battles of Rivas, but again, we're simplifying for the sake of storytelling. So Walker's forces took refuge in an inn and confronted the Costa Rican army in street-to-street fighting while his snipers in the Rivas church picked people off. So like we're in this town. It's very like
Close kit.
I mean, Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Except with fewer cool flaming attacks and fewer people asking, "How are you, Ken?" Kelley didn't like that one, but she's mad. You're mad that you were like, "Damn it, I like it a little."
Yep.
So as a cook and a medic, Pancha wasn't given a weapon, but that wasn't going to stop her.
Why would it? Grabbing
a discarded rifle from the ground and filling her apron pockets with bullets, Pancha charged into the fray. I'm just going to say, if you've ever worked somewhere that has like a cook or a chef, they are the person you do not piss off. Even working at the daycare, you did not piss off the lady who made the food.
No.
Because she would ruin you. And I feel like this is very similar energy. Like she's in there with her gun, her pocket full of bullets, and her frying pan. And she's just like, who's ready for breakfast, bitches? Time to crack some eggs.
You're ruining the lunch menu. Whack.
I'm sorry.
Smack you with a spoon.
No substitutions allowed. Guacamole is extra. So when she witnessed some Costa Rican troops retreating, she called for them to join her and charged forward. So she kind of like shamed them, which we've encountered before.
What the fuck are you doing?
She's like, hey, I'm covered in eggs and chorizo. I've got an apron on and I'm getting in this shit. What the fuck are you doing? Also, I made your eggs sunny side up instead of scrambling them like everyone else's. You fucking owe me.
Yeah, you owe me,
bitch. I'm calling in the favor.
So all you need to do is just rally the troops by being like, who's fed you all this time?
You do not fuck with the lady who makes your food.
No.
You do not
If you want more food,
yes,
you don't fuck with that.
So perhaps inspired by her drive or shamed at retreating when a woman was charging forward, they joined her. Love to see it. I love it when fragile masculinity actually like works out.
Kind of works in our favor.
When we can weaponize it. So Pancha helped Costa Rican forces recover a cannon during the battle, and ultimately the Costa Rican army was successful in pushing Walker's forces out of Rivas and continued to pursue him, hoping to end the fighting once and for all. However, an outbreak of cholera would ultimately cripple Costa Rica's forces. It's not TB, but it still sucks. It would cripple Costa Rica's forces, and the country itself, it actually decimated 1/10 of its population.
Yeah. Cholera was fucking awful.
Well, and part of what was happening is they were taking the bodies of the fallen and throwing them like into the river, which polluted the water supply, which spread the cholera. So it became way more of a thing. And then soldiers
they just didn't know what to do.
And then soldiers going back spread the cholera. So it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. It wasn't like, and then a cholera occurred. Like there was a sequence of events. Walker would ultimately, though, be defeated by armies of other Central American nations joining together in opposition. He was removed from power in 1859 and executed in 1860. Do you want to guess how old he was?
28.
34?
Drew is very close. He was 36.
Ooh.
So, like,
he was
young guy doing all this. Like 28 would probably have been my guess had I not known, because he was shockingly young.
Yeah.
Like I remember reading that he was 36. I was like, wait, what? So Pancha would survive the cholera epidemic.
For a second, I thought you were gonna say would survive his like people trying to murder him, which I'm like, we've had before.
Yep. Nope. She survived cholera.
Oh,
sweet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, the cholera.
We don't need more people dying of horrible diseases.
Cholera did not kill her, but she did eventually die.
I mean, as we all do, unfortunately.
You know, on December 31st, 1890, at 74 years old in San Jose. And I do love that, kind of like Betty White. She like died on New Year's Eve. She's like, I'm gonna upstage this whole fucking year.
Yeah,
the past year is mine. 1891 is mine. Y'all can suck it. So the story of her bravery at the Battle of Rivas spread, and she became a symbol of national pride. Widely considered the first woman in Costa Rica's military, she was honored with a postage stamp in 1984. And the Costa Rican Security Ministry also established the Pancha Carrasco Policewoman's Excellence Award in her honor. Wow. In 2001, when a former U.S. Coast Guard cutter ship was transferred to the Costa Rican Coast Guard, it was renamed Pancha Carrasco in her honor. And Pancha's portrait hangs at the Juan Santa Maria Cultural Museum in Alajuela. So she's like a national hero, who of course I have never heard of because I didn't grow up in Costa Rica. Spoiler alert.
And you didn't go to that museum.
I didn't. I don't even think we were near, we were probably close to Alajuela because I think it's close to San Jose, but we weren't in San Jose very long. Okay. We flew into San Jose. We spent a day there. So we flew in at like 11 p.m. We spent a day there and we went to Volcano Erazu, which is like one of the volcanoes that erupted and is like fucked San Jose sideways several times. Yeah. It's active. It's still like alive. Like it's not actively erupting, but it could. Yeah. That was really amazing though. And then the next day we got breakfast in San Jose and then we started driving down the West Coast. So we didn't do a lot of museums. We were mostly doing the nature stuff, like the ocean, the national parks.
Oh yeah, you got it.
A lot of walks and things like that. Well, it was one of those things like, we don't have this shit here. Like, I'm not going to be able to walk through a jungle with monkeys taking dumps on British tourists.
Yeah, that sounds lovely.
I need that. It was amazing. It was really amazing. It was like 10 minutes into that walk, too. So that dude had to walk around for a very long time with monkeys. Like we were taking leaves and like trying to scrape the shit off of his shirt.
Oh, he was like in your group?
Yeah, he was in our tour group. And it was funny because like the tour guide, Steven, had just made a comment about, like, because there are howler monkeys above us. And he had just made a comment like, oh, just like try not to stand directly under them because, they don't have a toilet that they go to. There's not like a corner that they just take a shit, and almost as if on cue.
Oh God, that's funny.
On the dude's shoulder, down his back. It was huge. And like him and his wife are from around the Oxford area, and she's got this like very dry British wit where like she's giving him no, oh my God, baby. She's like,
he told you not to.
Well, she's basically like, well, everyone's going to be talking about this when they get home, aren't they? She just knows. Yeah. She's just like, well, he can't get that souvenir in a store. Like she was in a loving way, like the British way, like
giving him shit.
It was amazing. And we actually, when we stopped for lunch, we were chatting with them a bit, and she was just like, you know what though? Everyone is going to be telling this story when they get home.
Oh yeah.
And here we are. But seriously, it was like 5 minutes into our fucking hike.
That's hilarious.
Howler monkey took a giant nasty shit on his tit. It was amazing.
All right. I have to pee. Finish your story.
That's it.
Oh, so you don't have a legacy or anything?
Well, my legacy was just kind of, about her becoming a national hero.
She did.
Well, she was widely considered the first woman in Costa Rica's military.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like everything she did was her own.
Yeah, and her portrait hangs up in Alajuela.
Yeah, all the things you already mentioned.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't write a specific legacy section because it just kind of like naturally fed into itself.
Here I thought it was going to be something where she kicked him out of the inn or something like that. No, she took a cannon from him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was like, this is mine now.
It made me think of like when we were in Texas. So there's a cannon that I think Texans stole during the when they were
still have it,
when they were actually when it was Mexico and they were trying to take over Mexico. And so it's a big saying in Texas, come and get it. And it's like there are a lot of t-shirts with the picture of the cannon, and I was like, oh, I
and then when you look into it, you're like, it's super racist.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea.
Super racist. Because we thought about it, we were like, okay, I kind of like it. Like that, you're like, we took your shit, come and get it. But no, it's super racist.
Well, in Minnesota, we have a Confederate flag that we captured during the American Civil War. Mm-hmm. And is it like Virginia or West Virginia? I don't remember the state. But we captured it from them, and we have it at the Capitol, and the state has asked for it back several times.
And we're like, nah.
And we're like, well, it's a Confederate flag. What the fuck do you want to do with it?
Yeah.
So it's very like that same energy, but a very different context. But this feels like come and get it in a good way.
In the way we thought it meant. That we were like, that's hilarious and fantastic.
I'm just glad she didn't try to put cannonballs in her pockets.
Yeah, that would not have gone well.
Oh my God.
Pocket full of bullets, pocket full of cannonballs.
You know what? If anyone could do it, it was definitely her.
Oh, yeah.
This is what women can do when they're given pockets. So, Kelley, what the fuck are you thankful for?
Besides Drew being on the podcast and actually speaking?
Well, I mean, that can be your thing.
I mean,
if you want to phone it in.
I don't want to phone it in, though.
Yeah, let me phone it in.
Bitch. You can be thankful for being on the podcast.
We're going to ask you what you're thankful for, too. So
you're going to be last.
Strap in, strap on. Start thinking.
I am thankful for all the birthday wishes. And it's like, it was chill, but it was nice. Like, to not have expectations or like to do anything really. And like, everyone's like, did you do something fun? And I'm like, I don't know. What's your definition of like fun? Because like, did I go and do something? No. Did I enjoy my birthday? Yes. So, but yeah, I appreciate all the birthday wishes and just getting to spend time with my family and all those good things. I think that's what I'm thankful for, is like the ability to do that and just how much fun it was.
I'm thankful that you clawed your way out of your mother 34 years ago.
Yeah. Same.
God
bless.
Way
to let everyone know how old I am.
I'm sorry, were we not talking about it?
No, I was
You're younger than I am, okay?
By like literally less than a month.
Yeah, but you know what? You love to remind me that I'm older than you.
If it helps you, I will say that in a year, I'll be the Jones that died at 36. No, who? No.
Wait, fucking what?
Who's the guy? Who's the guy that tried to filibuster?
Walker. Oh.
Gosh. Got the name wrong already.
I was like,
they were like, what are you talking
Jones.
about?
I'm like,
I don't
who do we
know.
know that died at 36?
Why Jones came into my head instead of Walker. I don't know.
Walker Jones. He would have been cooler if his name was Walker Jones.
Yeah, like that sounds like a good name.
He wouldn't have been a filibustero then.
No.
No, he would have been cool. He would have played guitar and sang the blues.
But I'm 1 year away from that death.
Well,
the inevitable heat death
you're
of the
not going to
universe.
try to take over Central American countries, so I think you're going to get through 36.
Yeah, I think
I
think
met
you're
yourself.
okay,
Yeah.
Drew.
Yeah.
If everything keeps going well.
Yeah.
Or not.
Emily, what are you thankful for?
Well, I did say that I was thankful for you clawing your way out of your mother.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was your actual thing or if you had more.
I am thankful for the people in my life that remind me that even though the world seems like it's on fire, there are plenty of people who are
Not on fire?
who are right there with me fighting the fire.
Yeah.
Drew and I actually went to a friend's art opening, and her work is amazing and really cool and thought-provoking, and I'm just little things like this, supporting people who are doing cool work that we actually care about. This is also resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Drew, what are you thankful for?
Well, I am going to phone it in. I'm thankful for having so many cool friends that do so many cool things that let me just join them.
It's not phoning it in when you're praising us, Drew.
Yeah, we're fine with
It's
that.
actually what you need to be doing. If you were like, I'm really thankful for, my
Literally
help, I would have
anything
been
else,
like,
we would have been
"And?"
like, excuse me?
And I know there's more to that.
Because never would I have thought in my life I'd been on a podcast. And here I am.
You're welcome.
Making dreams come true.
Yes.
For Drew, White Pod Jesus, pray for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also wear sandals a lot.
I do.
You are quite Jesus-like.
Thank you.
Como Jesus.
Long hair, long beard, sandals.
Yes.
What else do you need?
Actually, and you look very much like what Americans think Jesus looks like because you are white.
Congratulations.
That Caucasian Jesus.
Caucasian Jesus. Oh my goodness. I was just talking. We had a DEI meeting for work, and we were I mentioned growing up, and I was like, yeah, going to Catholic school, Jesus was always white, and I just literally never thought about it until I was a grown ass adult. And I was
then you're like, wait a minute.
wait.
Yeah, same.
He was always brunette, though. He was never blonde.
No.
But he always had blue eyes for some reason.
It's very
and not
Aryan,
black.
to be honest.
Mary was blonde sometimes.
And not black hair.
Oh, no.
Just
my brunette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so Jesus was a sandal-wearing hippie. Cool. White sandal-wearing hippie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for listening to another. So actually, really quick, before I sign this off, whenever you see a representation of white Jesus, it's actually Pod Jesus, and it's Drew.
And think of our podcast, and then tell everyone about it.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you find a picture of white Jesus in the wild, that is actually Drew. He is Pod Jesus, and send us those pics. Pray to the Pod Jesus. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Whining About Herstory. Like us on Facebook at Whining About Herstory, Instagram at WAHPAD.
Our website is whiningaboutherstory.com, where you can find a link to all of that social media, a link to all of our episodes, as well as all of our merch. You can also find a link to our Buy Me a Coffee, where you can sponsor a glass of wine for as little as $5 or an entire bottle for $15. You can also donate as little as $1 a month to join our Patreon and get some bonus content, as well as join us for a monthly happy hour.
Which ours is coming up pretty soon.
It's where it's at.
By the time this
comes out,
has,
it'll have passed.
yeah, but you can still join for the next one then.
Yeah.
Yes.
The third
There's always another one.
There's
There's always
Wednesday
another
of
one.
every month.
Third Wednesday of every month because it's Wine Wednesday. Also raise 5 stars wherever you listen because it pisses off the right people.
And gives me and Emily warm, fuzzy feelings.
And
it's
it's
like
like-
Jesus.
And it's like buying an indulgence from Pod Jesus,
Oh, yeah.
basically.
Yep.
Like, you want to get into Pod Heaven, you got to make Pod Jesus happy. And that means leaving us 5-star reviews wherever you listen. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Whining About Herstory. I'm Emily.
I'm Kelley.
I'm Drew.
Pod Jesus. And have an empowered day, y'all. Bye.
Bye.
You're just a little flat there, Drew. Come on.
Bye. Oh.
Wait, you're here. I need you.
No. Let's see. Ready?
Yep.
Bye.
Beautiful. Magical.
All right, bye.
Pod Jesus is the way.